Excellent.
depth approval.
Thank you for that clarification. Any further discussion from commission? All right, Mr. Pettit, please call roll.
Anderson,
Yes.
Bonesi,
Yes.
Kalikia,
Yes.
Dreyer,
Yes.
Edmund,
Yes.
Strickland,
Yes.
Tarasik,
Yes.
Trot.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. We look forward to seeing the final solution installed. We'll move on to our second. Thank you. We'll move on to our second applicant located at 1843 West 58th Street, new single-family house construction. I'd like to welcome the applicant to open up your mic and announce yourself and tell us about your project.
Good morning.
Hi, this is John Wuddick. Go ahead.
Go ahead, John. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
No, actually, I thought you may not be on, Jenny. I did not see the invite list. I thought I had to step in. Sorry. So it's floor is all yours.
Good morning, everyone. This is Jenny Johnson. I am with Deani Homes. I am the sales and design consultant for the project that we are reviewing. We had a great meeting last week and are coming back to review that information and also to note some of the recommendations that were given to us by this board. One of the main recommendations that was given was to review the appearance of the stone on the front of the home. And we did go ahead and review that information. In the presentation itself, the sandstone that we are using, the cultured stone that we are using that looks like sandstone, there is a rendering, a picture of it, not the rendering, the drawing, but a picture of the actual sandstone to show that it is more monochromatic than perhaps the 2D drawing is representing. And comments that were given to us was to please ensure that we are using the larger pieces of the stone to put on the home for consistency with the appearance of the neighborhood, which of course we said that we would absolutely agree to and try to work our best to do. So I know that was one of the main concerns a couple weeks ago when we were here. So just wanted to clarify that. And it was passed. John, exactly what's the wording on that? It was passed with no conditions. Approved as presented. That's it. Yes. Approved as presented at our last meeting. So just coming back here to re-review it with everyone here and hopefully get the approval and we can start building a beautiful new home.
Great. Thank you for that overview of what you changed since your last presentation. Since I wasn't at the last meeting, I'm going to ask Mr. Pettit and Mr. Brunges to maybe highlight on the rendering that was referred to or the sample so that we can just see that.
Yeah, it is one of the last slides in the presentation where we're showing the color palette along with the stone sample.
This was reviewed at our last meeting. Is that correct, Mr. Pettit?
That's correct, Madam Chair. The commission, I think, was supportive of the overall design, the scale of the building, how it relates to the other houses on the street. There was a lot of discussion about the, they liked the color palette. There was an issue with the stone that they showed us last time on the front of the house. There was a lot of discussion about the materials. But I would have to say that on the whole, the commission supports at least at the conceptual meeting, the commission supported finding a compromise solution here, given the circumstances. We need to hold to the standards, but there are times when we have to work with property owners with limited resources and extenuating circumstances. So I think the commission was willing to be more flexible in this case in terms of the materials.
Thank you for that overview. That's helpful. Mr. Brunges, did you have additional before we jump back to the presentation? Go ahead.
Yes, I have the design review committee report from last week.
Okay, so sorry, apologize. So if that concludes the presentation, was there anything else from the applicant that regarding the presentation that needs to be stated before we go into the official discussion? I wasn't clear that this was presented only for concept previously and not final, and today it's here for final. Is there Mr. Whiting?
Yeah, John, I don't have anything further to add. Did you have anything further to add?
Yes, one clarification or expansion. It was mentioned the hardship or limited resources. For anybody who did not attend the conceptual review, two things. A, my fiance, who unfortunately can't attend today, she is quadriplegic. We are building this house as a fully accessible home for her. So A is going to be up to ADA guidelines. And B, the reason we're going with new construction is that we have no other housing options. Retrofitting a pre-existing home within the city of Cleveland is not possible. Condos are not a viable solution due to a multitude of reasons I won't go into. And ultimately, we've gone 35% over budget on this project, liquidating or having to liquidate roughly 10 years worth of savings in order to cover the cost overruns. It's been quite a burden. And regarding the material note before, the neighborhood council originally asked us to do the front in a different material. They did not like vinyl. And we got the numbers back, and it was not financially viable to do the front in hardy board and fiberglass windows as they had requested. So that's where the discussion was with the Landmarks Commission last time, is that it really is just an undue burden. We appreciate and respect the standards they're trying to uphold. We appreciate the council's mission, but we don't feel that this house applies, also being new construction. It, kind of, I don't want to say grants some exception, but it presents some unique issues in a historic district like that. And that also should have been taken into consideration by the council, the neighborhood council.
Thank you for that addition. We will now then, if that concludes your presentation, we appreciate the additional insight. That's very helpful, especially for myself, because I wasn't here last week due to being out of town. We'll move on to receiving the feedback from the local committee. Mr. Brunges, could you review that, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee was appreciative of the design and how much the owners and the building design team put into trying to integrate the project into the neighborhood. The committee acknowledges the effort and cost of the owners to attempt to build a home that reflects the overall feel of the surrounding homes. However, the committee feels that the vinyl siding and windows, especially on the front facade, was not appropriate regarding the historical standards of the Department of the Interior. The homeowners reiterated the effort and cost that the project has already costing and objected to the increased cost of complying with said standards. The owners also felt that the different materials would weather at different rates, thus requiring additional monetary outlays to correct. Price is an issue here. The owners felt that the process had gone on too long, and as Mr. Whiting just reiterated about cost overruns. There was also the objection to the cultured stone on the front facade under the windows, but not all the committee members felt that way. A motion was made to accept the proposal as presented. It was seconded, and the initial vote was a tie 3-3. Not being familiar that results of a tied vote should have been technically a disapproval, one committee member changed their vote to approve, and thus the committee approved the project as presented 4-2. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brunges. We'll now open up the floor to the commission for questions or comments. Mr. Edmond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding the comment about party board on the front facade, and I fully appreciate the cost concerns. I actually think that having a different material on the front facade would maybe be problematic in terms of the color would, never be a perfect match, and that they would age differently. So I think for pragmatic reasons, the continuing the same vinyl siding along the front is fine. On the cultured stone, if I could just ask Ginny, could you clarify what was the revision to the cultured stone? What was it before versus what we're seeing now?
So there was concern that it was going to be almost, I guess the word too busy would be appropriate, that it might be different colors, different sizes. There are different types of cultured stone that definitely do variances in color and size. The selections that were made for this project are a sandstone cultured stone, and it is a neutral color. So there will still be some size variance, but as that stone is being adhered to the property, we understand that, we're going to try to make sure that the larger stones are being used out of the pallets that are delivered versus, smaller stone, larger stone, to give that appearance of the neighborhood with some of the larger sandstone look. But, just wanted to clarify to the board that everyone knows that it's not a multicolored stone. It really is a consistent color in the stone. I think there might have been some confusion on that because the 2D drawing does show, different sizes and different shapes, and which is reflective of some pallets we can receive, but not in this case where they selected the neutral sandstone color.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I think, and then I think I'm repeating myself from the last one, but in some of the context images here, we're seeing some of the really nicest and fanciest houses on the street, but in fact, the street and the neighboring properties have a wide variety of ages, conditions, styles. It's more architecturally diverse than I think some of the pictures would represent. And I think the owner and the designer have clearly done a significant effort to make something that's fitting and appropriate, and I think would sit happily on the street. So I support the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edmonds. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the applicant taking our feedback into consideration with the stone. I think if you go with the larger stone that's a little more flatter surface than what was originally shown, I think that'll be a great improvement. And I definitely support this project. I look forward to seeing this on the street.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I would agree. I mean, this is my first time seeing it, but I briefly, Carl, could you go back? This is the rendering of an example house with a stone installation. Could you go back to one of the renderings of the project? Could you go to the front? Okay, we don't have a rendering of the front.
Is that it?
Is that the front of the house?
That's the front of the house, yes.
Yes, that's the front.
But the colors are different. Like this is just an example, or is the colors going to be for the front of the house going to be the cream and tan versus the blue and cream that are on the sides?
So sorry, on the material samples, there's the shakes. Yeah, so that's the vinyl shakes on the front, and in the recessed areas of the front facade, so behind the porch, I believe that's the blue siding.
Thank you for clarifying. I was not picking up on my small screen. Okay, that's helpful. I think this is it appears that the design team and ownership has worked hard to try to make this fit into the neighborhood, and working within your limitations of trying to make this accessible for your personal reasons, but trying to meet the district's design standards. I feel like you've created a nice balance of this. So I am personally in support of this project also. Are there other questions or comments from the commission? If not, would someone like to put forward a motion? Mr. Edmond?
I move that the project be approved as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Pettit, please call roll and announce the results.
Anderson,
Yes.
Venezzi,
Yes.
Pelikia,
Yes.
Dryer. Mr. Dryer? Okay, we're having technical difficulties at our end, so bear with us. Edmund,
Yes.
Strickland,
Yes.
Tarasik,
Yes.
Trot,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. We look forward to seeing your project move forward. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, and we appreciate your time and support.
Absolutely. That concludes our certificates of appropriateness for today. We'll move on to our concept plan reviews. Just a reminder, this is for feedback only. We will not be taking a vote. We'll begin with our first applicant located at 186569 West 22nd Street, renovation and addition.
Morning, everybody. My name is Brian Spear. I haven't spoken to this group before, but I'm the manager of the entity which owns this property. I also have with us today Susan Broadwater, who is with the design firm Began Architecture. Paul Began is also part of the team, but he's unable to join us, and so we have Susan with us here today as well.
Good morning.
The GC on this project is Maroos Brothers, and I, of course, get the pleasure of receiving our initial budget today, which should be fun. Today's presentation, I have provided a few slides that provide a historical background on the property. It shows the current state of the property as part 2. And then part 3, we go into some initial design concepts. I would note that this proposal has been seen already by Ohio City Inc. And I've had various meetings with folks around the city. This is my first project in the city of Cleveland. And I've been trying to coordinate with various organizations from Landmarks with Mr. Brunjes to City Planning to Ohio City Inc. and various others. And so our hope is that we can design something that we're all very proud of and that it fits within the context of what you folks are looking for, and something that again that we're all very proud of, that touches on its history but also provides a new aesthetic that will take it for the foreseeable future. So with that, I think that we have a kind of contextual site plan that shows where our property is located relative to Irishtown Bend. It's kind of a funky location in that what we have here is it's very close to West Side Market. It's Bridge Avenue terminates into West 22nd, and it overlooks the flats and the Cuyahoga River. It's on a cul-de-sac, and it's really just this property with St. Emmerich's Church. And another overview of where it's located. This is right next to, one of the things that's a little bit noteworthy at this stage is to see that you have the RTA line that's right next to it. The RTA line was previously Hunt Street, and this property, as I have shown in my presentation, it was previously 2 buildings that were built in the right-of-way of the Cleveland Union Terminal. And these 2 buildings were literally physically moved 50 or 100 feet northbound, and they were combined together to create what we have here. And so I'm going to try not to get too far into it. I think that, I find this history very fascinating, and that's why I presented it to you folks. But I'll kind of zip through what we have and, on the historical perspective, and I'll try not to belabor it too much. As you can see, the building where it's currently located is lot 188. It's where the top arrow is located, and it was previously a vacant lot in 1912. This fire map also shows that this lot 187, where the two buildings were built, is also vacant in 1912. We move along to 1922. We can see that on lot 187, these two buildings have actually been constructed. One of them is a rectangular shape that's facing West 22nd. The second is a square-shaped building that's facing Hunt Street. And my apologies, it's pretty small, but it's kind of the best that we could do with what we were given. So in 1922, they were constructed, they were done. I think these buildings were built in 1913 and 1917, respectively. This is the square-shaped building that was facing Hunt Street. And again, this has all been demoed and made way for the Cleveland Union Terminal, which is now the red line for the RTA. This is what I refer to as the south building, the rectangular building. And this was facing West 22nd. So we're on the south side of West 22nd looking north. All of these buildings were demolished, but our building, the south building as I call it, was moved up down the street. I think of it almost like a car moving down the street, where it pulled out of this parking spot and it went into the new lot, into the new spot, so that what was previously the front of West 22nd is now the back. This area that you see, this facade that you see, is now overlooking the flats, and the back side of the building is now facing the front on West 22nd. So it's a bizarre set of circumstances, to say the least. And here again is the south building. This is from the north side of West 22nd, facing south. And again, this is where these gentlemen are in the foreground. That's the beginning of lot 188, which is where the buildings were moved to. And of course, here's Cleveland Union Terminal that was installed in the mid-20s. St. Emmerich's Church, you can see the steeple on the left, that was already constructed. And our building was moved behind the buildings that are here on the right side of West 22nd. So by 1927 fire map, we can see that lot 187 is blank for Cleveland Union Terminal, and lot 188 shows that these two buildings have been combined. The south building is that rectangular building, and the north building is a square-shaped building. So this is what we got. It's kind of interesting, where we have the staircase is behind where that front door, kind of plywood box was built out in the front of the building. That is the middle connector building. They built stairs in the middle of this. The building to the left is the north building. That one is largely untouched. So it keeps the original aesthetic that was facing Hunt Street. It has, arched windows and a fleur-de-lis. They have replaced the windows with these vinyl windows that are, kind of junky. To the right, you can see the south building. And what's kind of noteworthy is that on the third floor, you can see that there was a stairwell that was coming out, and they just bricked over it. So generally speaking, one of the themes that we have is that they've really just kind of painted over the rust, is what I call it. They've been doing the bare minimum for as long as I can tell to make this a 7-unit income-producing property. So that's the background of the building. I'll zip through this as well. I touched on this a moment ago, that the work that has been done, especially over the last 20 years or so, has been Slavin and the bare minimum. You can see that the brick here has been, the tuck pointing work has been not great in the upper right corner. This is the brick is mismatched, all throughout the building. This is the front of the building facing West 22nd, and it does show that there's nothing decorative above the windows there. This is evidence of the water intrusion. we literally had gutters that were clogged for years and they were spilling into the brick. And it seems like nobody has really cared for this building for a long period of time. Additionally, with that water intrusion combined with their excellent plumbing work and other work, they've been cutting through floor joists, and so we have a lot of sagging floors on the interior of the building. So I bought this building knowing that there's going to be a lot of work, and as I've been digging into it, that's certainly been validated. So here's the existing front elevation, pretty bare bones. As I mentioned, the building to the north, the left side of the screen, I view it as a very beautiful building, although the pointing work that was done leaves a lot to be desired. But I do view that north building as something that is pretty special. But the south building, again, since we're facing the rear of the property, is facing West 22nd. There's nothing very pretty about that building in its current state. Okay, so what we're proposing for the building is we'd like to expand the footprint on it and add a building to the south. We'd like to make this look like more of a townhome. We plan to demo the interior since a lot of it is not very useful. Take it all the way down to the masonry exterior walls and also the floor joists with the original hardwood flooring to repair that, but really rip out everything else. All mechanical, electrical, plumbing comes out, all drywall comes out. Make this structurally sound as the first pass, and to build something again that we're all proud of. All right, here's the proposed front elevation. As you can see on the left side of the building, the north building is largely the aesthetic is largely intact. The area where the plywood box was for the stairwell is now kind of a stair tower. That middle section is what the south building was that had the fire escape in the front. The stair tower on the right side, along with that building, would be new construction. Additionally, the fourth floor mansard roof would be new construction as well. So that's high level what we're going for. This is the proposed site plan that shows the new addition versus the existing building. We are planning on having an entry drive, or we'd like to have an entry drive on the rear. This is currently a parking area in the back of it. We would propose having a covered parking area so that there could be a common deck so you could really enjoy the view on the backside. The entry drive would come in from this cul-de-sac and it would exit on the left side, which is the north side of the property. And here's our proposed rendering. Again, this went to OCI, and this has been spoken with various people around the city about it. We do have some initial feedback on it as well, but we wanted to present this to the Landmarks Commission to understand what feedback you guys would have. We certainly appreciate the feedback, especially detailed feedback, so that we can hopefully come back and get it right on the next iteration. So I think that's really everything that I had to present. Again, very much appreciate your feedback and your comments, especially details. I'm going to be taking notes, so hopefully it's not too loud. And yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll begin with feedback from the local committee. Mr. Brunges, do you have that today also, or is there someone from Ohio City here? Nate?
Good morning, everybody. I am here to just talk about the conceptual feedback. So all they really said was that there was the need to remove the faux historic materials, such as the mansard roof. They didn't agree that that would be appropriate for the historic district. And then a clearer definition of the new versus old materials and the design of the building overall. So those were their main comments from design review. Thank you.
Thank you for that summary. We'll open up the floor then for questions or comments from the commission. Mr. Edmond?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, question, the mansard roof, is that an apartment up there? Is that a mechanical screen wall? What's going on behind that?
The mansard roof area is about 1,000 square feet. Each floor is about 3,000 feet, and this 1,000 feet would be an extension of one of the units on the top floor, as proposed.
Thank you. I've always felt something should happen here, and it's exciting to see something happen here. The expansion, I think this, these could be such interesting and cool living spaces, and so very, very positive from that aspect. I am not too concerned about the question of differentiating between the existing and the new in this case, because I don't think the existing is of such a high level of architectural significance that we need to follow that rubric. I think that is important in some cases, but maybe not so much here. I do agree that the mansard is, I would say it's overstyled. I think you have a handsome and well-composed composition of the building overall. And I think you've done actually a very clever job of incorporating what's a challenging tectonics of the existing building into something that works overall. The brackets and the overhang and the window treatments are sort of Italianate, and then the mansard is sort of Second Empire, and so there's a bit of a mismatch there. But I feel like that the mansard draws attention to itself in a way that detracts from the overall composition, and I think it could just be simplified and integrated a little bit better, which maybe that actually would reduce the cost of what you're doing up there. But I would encourage simplification of the mansard and just a different approach to that. But otherwise, I think I'm very excited about this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edmond. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the applicant for all of the research they've done on the history of the building and the movement of the building. That was fascinating. I'm very familiar with this building. I've been familiar with it for decades, and I've been inside, and the floors are sloping, and there's a lot of issues, that have been there for years. So I just want to acknowledge that that's, the applicant's very correct about that. I also wanted to bring up that from the east side of the building, you get a phenomenal view of downtown. And I think that's probably one of the reasons it's stood in that site in spite of everything is, people always wanted that view. I really think that the design is very handsome, very elegant, but I do agree with Mr. Edmonds. I think the mansard roof probably does need to be simplified, and it does distract from the rest of the wonderful design. I really am very encouraged to see this brought to us. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Benazzi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First off, I will echo all my fellow members in someone doing something with this property. I think it's always great. I didn't even know that West, I'll take the opposite end here. I didn't know that West 22nd Street even existed. I just looked at Google Maps like, oh my God, it's literally tucked back in there. So you learn something new every day. But as for the architecture, I would argue, the mansard roof traditionally goes to the edges because it is an extension of the building to create another floor, but the floor is the roof. And so seeing the mansard roof not extend, over the left and right parts of this elevation lends itself to understanding its falsity, right? Like from a historical sense, like this isn't actually a real mansard roof as it would in the historical sense. So I think using that in putting that language, and as Mr. Edmonds said, the bottom is very Italianate with this tripartite, and then you have the Italianate top, and then you're coming in with a mansard. It's a confusing relationship of architectural languages, and it's not very resolved right now. So I would say either one, if you want to fully go all the way out and make a mansard building, it would have to go all the way to the edges. you know, to truly start to get towards that language. Otherwise, I think it needs to be reconsidered. You know, how much of that space, you know, I understand it's probably very valuable space up there. So other creative solutions to kind of get that on top of the building that aren't so interfering of the language. And I would argue you're starting to put these kind of modern languages on the left side with this balcony. Right? It's very kind of like thin steel with steel railings. And that maybe you could start to use that language kind of stepped back at the front elevation, right over here. You could start to maybe do this like very clean modernist language that's kind of stepped back and very quiet, so it doesn't detract from the historical language that you're trying to compose on the front of the facade. So that's definitely, I think, one of the bigger things to take a second stab at. I'll leave my comments at that while I keep analyzing the elevation, but overall, I'm excited. You know, I'm always excited to see repurposed buildings, not just cookie cutter things. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonesi. Giancarlo?
Yes, good morning. I agree with the comments made by Mr. Bonazzi and Ms. Anderson, but just for a moment, I'd like to discuss the actual materials. I mean, I assume it's brick. Is that stone then, the light colored materials?
Susan, I would ask that you jump in on that one, but for the base of it and for the stair tower, that is a stone material. I forgot what the actual name is.
Yeah, a cast stone on the base and to that
Cast stone.
stairwell tower. Mm-hmm.
Why aren't you considering natural stone, like a sandstone or a limestone?
I cannot answer that question. I'd have to
That's
defer that well, Paul was working on the design of this one, and that's the direction he was going with the design and the elevations of the project. So I can't answer to why he chose the cast stone versus a natural stone.
It's probably cost, and it's half the cost of a limestone or sandstone, Giancarlo, typically.
And what about the new building then? That's brick, similar brick to the existing building?
Yes, similar brick. The intent would be to clean up the existing building, take it back, do the tuck pointing, try to fill in with closer matched brick to what those areas that had been repaired earlier, and then to match it with the new building. So
And the
there's a more
stairs?
cohesive look across the front.
Okay, thank you. And the stairs, wrought iron, is that wrought iron and the stairs are cast concrete or are they stone also, some type?
I'm not sure if you've gotten that far with it, but so the railings would be the wrought iron, and then we've got brick along the sides of the stairs.
Okay. What about the mansard? That's cedar shakes that you're considering? What material are you considering for the exterior of that?
That would be a shake material.
Sorry?
That would be the cedar shake material.
Cedar shake, okay.
Mhm.
Would it be painted or stained or? On one rendering, I'm seeing a very light color, more classical shape look, and the other rendering, I'm seeing kind of a dark charcoal element.
Yeah,
Like
I'm not sure if we've gotten that far in the design as to picking how if it was painted or stained.
Okay. And I agree with Mr. Bonetti, typically that type of roofing structure and mansard roof usually duplicates the size of the building, typically. That's all for now. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Giancarlo. I would echo much of what Ian, my other commission members have said, so I won't repeat much of them besides that I do agree. The fourth floor mansard to me is not fitting with the rest of the design. I think I would reevaluate if that's going to be part of the design, what the expression is, either continuing the modern expression, on the left for that, so that you're down to 2 languages versus 3. My other feedback would just be, I really like what you're doing here, and I think it's a great, repositioning of this property. But I wouldn't feel restricted to have everything exactly match. I mean, some of the beauty of the images, in my personal opinion, that you began with, which were the historical pictures, had a variety of different expressions across the buildings. And, you know, as you get into this, trying to reclad, you know, the brick buildings with stone may or may not be, you know, the easiest thing to do. So, you know, as you continue the development of this, my personal opinion is that it doesn't have to be, you could bring in some variety, I'll say it that way, to the facade to allow it to be more of the unique row houses versus a, you know, very sort of more modern, very, or not modern, but very strict expression that is symmetrical on both sides. So that's just my personal opinion as you get into this more. But I do feel that the mansard is not appropriate for this type of building the way it's currently configured. And I encourage you to study that. And then, you know, take into consideration as you re-point the building, that are you replacing all of the brick at the cornice work and the base to incorporate that stone? Or does it give you some opportunities for some freedom to have maybe 3 different expressions here? Other feedback? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say thank you for the detailed feedback from you and from everybody else too. You know, our goal is, again, we want to make something that everybody is proud of and that we're proud of as well. And we're hoping that we can do it efficiently. And by having this detailed feedback, it gives us something that we can come back to you with and hopefully get it right on the next iteration.
Mr. Pettit, or Mr. Brunges, I'm sorry, my chat is not reading well. Did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to make mention that because this is more than 4 units, I believe a tree preservation plan will also be needed to be completed on this. Even though some are already existing and there's going to be some new construction to this, so they may want to look into, and we can get the information that they need as well.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Did you say a tree preservation plan?
Yeah, yes, tree preservation plan, and I'll get you that information to get with our urban forester.
Okay, thank you.
And the last piece of feedback is, as when you come back for your final approval, we'd appreciate just seeing the other side of the building too. And I think we have a good understanding of this side, but how does this design expression wrap the entire building, and how does it relate to your roof deck and parking? How does it cascade down the hill? Would be something we'd want to see.
Okay.
Giancarlo, anything else?
Yeah, one more question. Will the roof be used, since you have these exceptional views of Cleveland? Will that be a functional roof or just a roof, normal roof?
Yes, sir. The plan was that it would be a functional roof, that all areas, the parapet wall is set up where that would be the edges of the roof. And so it would all be a functional roof.
Okay, and that's, so it's recessed, there's no need for railing?
I think what Giancarlo is asking is, will you be using the 2 sides as roof decks, or will that just be standard roof? So will you be occupying those areas, or will you just be doing a standard roof in those areas?
Right.
The plan is that they would be occupied, that people would be able to walk out onto the roof, and there would be railings that would be on the inside part of the parapet wall.
And not visible from the exterior, from the street?
No, sir. The current plan is that it would be behind the parapet wall and not visible from the street.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not seeing any additional hands go up with feedback. Does the applicant feel like you've received enough feedback from this commission to continue the development of your design?
Yes, we absolutely have, and it's been great to work with everybody so far. We appreciate your comments, and these comments here, they are similar to the comments from OCI and from other people individually when we speak. And so we're going to get back to the drawing board and hopefully present something that we get right on the next iteration.
Excellent. Well, I look forward to having you back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for all your input.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next applicant. Give me 1 second. There we go. Located at 3575 West 130th Street, renovation.
Hi, this is Seth Duke with Biolowski Cleveland. I'm the project architect for the Hawthorne School renovation. I'm also joined on the call by my colleague David Cron here at Biolowski, as well as I believe Josh Rosen from Sustainable Community Associates, the developer for the project.
Morning.
Thanks. And as you can see on our slide here, we're also working with HP Group. They are our historic preservation consultant for this project. This is a historic tax credit project that was just awarded tax credits in this round. For those who may be unfamiliar with this school, this was one of several sites that the Cleveland Metropolitan School District issued an RFP for redevelopment for. So SCA was awarded this site, and as I mentioned, we are also receiving historic tax credits for the redevelopment of the building. Looking at the current site context, for those who may be unfamiliar, this is between West 129th and West 130th, just south of Lorraine Avenue. Jefferson Park is the park you can see on the west edge of the context plan here, just a block away. The site extends all the way to the north, encompassing this current asphalt lot with a commercial area along Lorraine Avenue. There's a little strip mall there at the north edge, and then to the south and to the east, it's primarily single-family residential. Looking from Lorraine, as I mentioned, it's a very commercial, very auto-oriented zone. You can see the school just shy of a block away from Lorraine Avenue, and then it becomes more residential as you go further south. And I believe the next slide shows just a block away is Jefferson Park. So there's some wonderful outdoor amenities for the new residents that would be living in this restored school building. The conditions of the school are actually really great. A lot of the masonry and stonework is in really good shape, and we intend to restore the masonry and clean the stone. The exterior of the building is mostly remaining unchanged. I'll go through in some of our drawings the slight modifications that we're making, but for the most part, we're preserving and maintaining the historic character of the school, even as we transition this to a residential use. This is our current proposed site plan. We presented to local design review and also just had a community meeting this week. And so we are working through feedback for how to treat particularly the front lawn area of the site. This building obviously was a school and had a number of entrances. I believe originally there were 7 different doors into this building. So with the transition to residential, we are selectively choosing to use some of those entrances. So the number 1 you can see here that says historic entry closed. The south portion of the building, that south third, was the original school building, and then it was expanded on in the 1920s with the north 2/3, adding on several more doors. This door will be right in front of a proposed apartment unit, and instead of using that entrance, we're proposing a new entrance labeled as number 2 here that would meet our accessibility requirements. This is sort of a split level building where the main entrances are between a ground floor level and a first floor level. So to meet accessibility, we're reusing what was previously a service entrance and emergency exit and turning that into the new primary entrance to the building. And then the number 3s are the main stairwells in the building that we will be preserving and maintaining and using for access. And then there are a couple accessory entrances that will also be sealed up, similar to the front entrance on West 130th at the south end. We'll be reworking the sidewalks. As part of that accessible entrance, we'll be regrading some of the lawn and then bringing people to the new main entrance and then updating our landscaping. The current asphalt lots at the rear on West 129th will be used for the residence parking, as well as utility space, that number 6 in the back. That's actually over old coal chutes in the basement, so we can't really landscape that. So we're using that to bring in our utilities and handle trash and recycling. And then we'll have some visitor parking along a new drive that connects West 129th to West 130th. Part of the comments we did receive from the local neighborhood was just concerns about traffic. And so we're trying to add a new curb cut on West 130th to prevent all the traffic for the site from going in and out on West 129th. And then we're looking at adding some speed bumps or speed tables on that new drive so that it's really limited to just the automobile traffic for the building rather than people using it as a cut through. Thanks, Carl. As you may have seen on the previous slide, the north area of the site we're reserving sort of as a future development area. That is going to be a much later phase, but we have presented concepts for that to the State Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service, so they are aware of the intent to develop that land in the future and have seen these schemes and provided us feedback and approval for at least, I believe, the next option, option B, that is on the next slide, was the final version that was sent to the State Historic Preservation Office. But when that future phase does happen down the line, we will revisit the design and look for the necessary approvals for the historic context. I won't go into all the little details of how we're breaking up the interior, but just our overall intent for preserving the historic character of the building. For the most part, we're actually reusing sort of as a one-for-one the historic classrooms as units, so that lends most of the units to being one bedrooms based on the layout. But that allows us to really keep most of the interior walls intact. We're reusing the cloakrooms that were in the classrooms, including some of the old hardware for hanging hats and shoes and jackets. And we're preserving most, if not all, I think there's maybe one we're taking out, the chalkboards and corkboards in the classrooms. So there'll be a feature wall when you enter most of the units, as well as maybe a headboard in the bedroom spaces, but we're keeping those on the walls and leaving them in place and cleaning them up and restoring them. On this plan, you can see, as I mentioned, the new accessible entrance at the bottom of the page to the left. That will bring you into the ground level where we'll have mail and packages and provide that accessible path into the building. And then we'll have our accessible units on this ground floor, but we will still have the stairwells at both the north and south end and on the east side of the building to provide access to residents for all 3 floors of the project. The center wing on the basement is mostly utility space, and due to the changes in elevation and limited light, we're not using that for residential units. That will be backup house space, utility space, but we are looking at a gym amenity for the building as well. And then Carl, if you can, go to the first floor. It's a very similar layout. There are some larger spaces, some accessory spaces that were part of the school, such as a small library or a nurse's room that allow us to combine with the neighboring classrooms to create some larger units, some 2 bedrooms, or some smaller units in some cases, so a couple of studios as well. In the center wing of the building on the first floor, there's an auditorium that we're preserving as a large open space. And so that will actually be a 3-bedroom unit. And it has a stage there at the very top of the page on the east end of the building that will remain a stage. We'll preserve the proscenium, the woodwork around the stage, and that will be a new kitchen for the unit. The door is one that we are going to be sealing shut there at the bathroom at the back of the stage area, rather than having a direct door into someone's unit. And that just allows the space to function a little bit better. And then on the second floor, right above the auditorium, is an old gymnasium, and we're keeping that open, and that will be a large 4-bedroom unit. We'll be, resurfacing the hardwood floors, repainting the basketball lines, and trying to keep some of the basketball hoops mounted to the walls so that you really still keep that character of a school building, similar to how we're trying to treat the classrooms as well. And then at the roof level, there's a small penthouse that the central stair goes all the way up to that is just mechanical currently, and we're replacing all the systems in the building, so we'll no longer need that as a mechanical space. So we're actually going to use that as a 2-bedroom unit up at the top level with a small roof deck. We did consider having a public roof deck, but we would have to cut a huge chunk out of this historic building for elevator access, and to preserve a lot of the layout and the character of the building, it just really wasn't going to work from a historic preservation standpoint. As I mentioned earlier, from an exterior standpoint, we're really preserving what's there and repairing and restoring everything. All the windows will be new from both an abatement standpoint and an energy sustainability standpoint, but we are, going to meet the Secretary of Interior standards and match the historic windows that are there. We have good measurements of the existing windows as well as some quality historic drawings, and we'll be matching the existing windows. And then the entrances right now are currently just solid metal doors. We'll be restoring those based on the historic drawings we have, including new transoms. I believe the next slide shows the south elevation along Lynette Avenue, similar to the north elevation. Again, we're restoring and replacing the windows, cleaning up the masonry. That door that is seen on the right side, that goes to the auditorium. That will be one of the entrances that will no longer be operable, be sealed shut because it goes directly into an apartment unit. And then I believe West 129th is next. This facade, you can see it's going to be relatively unchanged, just new windows, new downspouts. There are some light wells around the building, and so we will have to add new railings to meet code for fall protection to prevent people from falling into these light wells that provide light and ventilation to some of the lower level units. And then along West 130th, this is really the only facade that has some slight changes. We'll be restoring that historic entrance on the south wing. It'll look like a door. It'll have a big transom, but it won't be operable because it backs directly up to an apartment unit. And then where the existing service door is to the north, we'll be putting in a new entrance door that will be glazed. It'll have a transom so that it aligns with the existing windows of the building, and then it'll have a small canopy for shelter. And then the only real change we're making to windows is right in the center. The lower level windows currently are slightly narrower because they open into a fan room in the basement that we're going to be converting to residential units. So we are widening those windows to be proportional to the windows above, and that was included in our our presentation to the State Historic Preservation Office as part of our tax credit application. Just a quick look from a rendered perspective of how we're treating the elevation. As I mentioned, we're preserving the existing configuration of the windows. They'll just be updated to meet current energy standards, but we'll be following Secretary of Interior standards for placement within the plane of the wall and profiles and the simulated divided lights. We'll have the railings I mentioned around the light wells for fall protection, but then we'll be adding landscaping to screen those a little bit and provide a little bit of a buffer from a privacy standpoint on the west 130th side, since that large lawn area will be open to the public. Just a quick section view where you can see those light wells. So we'll have the railings for fall protection, then the landscape buffer on both sides, more so privacy on west 130th, and then on the west 129th side, since that abuts our parking area, to provide a little bit of privacy, but also just screening from headlights and noise as well from cars coming in and out. As far as our site approach, we're keeping things fairly simple. We'll have a metal ornate fence around the parking lot to keep it secure. That will also blend into the fencing we have around the trash and utility area. That will include a sunscreen for opacity, and that will also include landscaping from a screening perspective. We'll have trash and recycling bins so that people aren't leaving trash out on the front lawn area. We'll have outdoor bike racks for visitors and residents. And then we're working with our landscape architect on our approach as far as outdoor seating in terms of benches, picnic tables, and site lighting for the paths and the parking areas. Just a perspective view showing the school from Lynette Avenue. We'll have the new entrances installed, the new windows, and then restoring the masonry and stone. As I mentioned, the building really, we're gonna keep the historic design and just refinish and restore what's there. Thanks.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll begin with getting feedback from the local committee first before we jump into commission feedback.
Madam Chair, I apologize. We don't have a report from the Far West Design Review Committee, but as far as I know, they had no issues with the restoration of the building. And I would just acknowledge Mr. Duke's note about their concerns about traffic calming for the project. So we will obtain that report and add it to the record in the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Then we'll open up the floor for questions and comments from the commission. I will start us off since I don't see any hands going up. I mean, I think this is a wonderful building, and I love that you're repurposing this and getting it occupied, because it's a very visible site, and I think you've done a very delicate restoration so that it still maintains its historic qualities, but repurpose it for a new use. My only question is, and I'm sorry, you said it, I just don't think I was following well enough, that the door that we see on the left side, the historic door in the original building, you said that's into a suite? Is that correct?
That's correct. So we're keeping the door, the opening intact, as well as the stairs behind it, but it does open directly into an apartment unit now. And so it'll be sealed shut and opaque at the door level.
Got it. So you can't with a shade, or are you doing film, or you
It would be a painted drywall partition behind the door, and then we leave the transom open so that there's natural light coming into the unit.
Okay, got it. That's where I wasn't quite following. So you're just basically making a box behind the door so that no one can access it, and then filling in the floor though behind it, or so that it all accesses for the unit itself. Understand now. But overall, I'm in support of the project. I think it's a very delicate restoration, and look forward to the project moving forward. Other questions or comments from the commission? One additional comment, what about your window color on your, obviously cleaning the brick for the building? You're maintaining the existing windows, and what color will they be moving forward?
So the new windows, we're still working on the exact specifics, but we're looking at sort of a buff color similar to what's shown in the rendering here to coordinate with the stonework. And then the doors and transoms will most likely be a darker bronze color is our current intent.
Versus trying to get them to, right now you look like an anodized aluminum in your doors on the right side of your rendering.
Yeah, they probably will be an aluminum framed system. We're pretty early in the design development phase for the entrances, but we'll go with a darker color for the doors.
Okay. In our next presentation, we look forward to seeing what your final selections are. Other questions or comments from the commission? All right. If there's no other questions or comments from the commission, do you feel that my feedback is really just to clarify the doors and window colors. Everything else is fairly self-explanatory, and also your railing materials. I don't think you showed an image. You showed your fence, but I didn't catch the railing image. Just clarifying that again with your landscape plan would be what we'd want to continue to see the progress on at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Do you feel you've received enough feedback to continue the development?
Yes, I believe so. David, Josh, is there anything else you have questions on or want to add?
No, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That concludes our concept plan reviews then for today, and we'll move on to administrative reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a few notes about some staff updates. Just want to report that Carl Brunges has been promoted into the city planner position in landmarks. Our second position, senior assistant city planner, has just been posted by Human Resources, so that will be open for, I believe, the next couple of weeks. So we're hoping to fill that position very soon. City planning has also have some staff changes. Allison Henney has been hired as their new architect, and she'll be working in the urban design section. So we will probably be working with her very, very much in the future. Brittany Jones is the new staff member in the Board of Zoning Appeals, and there is also a new staff member in Board of Building Standards, and I don't have her name handy, but maybe Carl can let you know that. Also, the secretary will be retiring on August 31st.
So you picked a date, huh?
So we have a date.
The secretary being you?
That would be me. And we'll keep you posted on any events leading up to that date.
Well, congratulations, Carl, for the promotion, and Don, we're sad that you have finally picked the date, but happy that you've picked the date, because obviously it puts us all under the deadline for 6 weeks, basically, right?
That's right, and I've been putting it off way too long.
Well, very excited for you.
Thank you.
I will be scheduling a couple of site visits for proposed demolition, one to the Waterson Lake School, which is undergoing a redevelopment proposal. And then there's another one for the Grantwood allotments. And I think there might be a third one, but I will get back to you. We administratively approved a demolition in the Lorraine Station historic district. There was a non-contributing building which had an interesting history as the Olympic Gym that actually the roof physically collapsed in, and since it did not have, it was a non-contributing building, we decided to take that down administratively, just so you are aware that that happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. And any other updates or reports or things that need to be discussed before we adjourn today? No? It's one of our
That's-
shorter meetings.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, then everybody have a great 2 weeks or have a great day, and we'll see you in 2 weeks at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take
Hey,
care.
everyone.
Bye-bye.